All right, we are on page 14. It is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh wait, I need to do a little bit of geography. So I'm going to point this here. A little bit of geography. This is a little map of the Admiral Benbow. You got to realize Admiral Benbow is on the ocean. There's a little beach, and then there's the ocean. There's a little path that goes in front of the Admiral Benbow. This direction is where there's the hamlet and the town that's nearby. Here's the rock that the captain would go and look on to see who was coming. Black Dog and the blind man Pew came from this direction. And there's a hill in both directions. So you can't really see anything from Admiral Benbow. It's kind of like the hamlet is about as far away as Pizza Hut is from here. And you know we were playing outside today? You can't see the Pizza Hut even though you know it's there. After you walk away, you can see the Pizza Hut. And you can't see the middle school from the Pizza Hut. It's down the hill. Right? It's up the hill. So you know it's there, but you can't see it. It's about 300 or 400 yards away. Not very far, but it'd be a tough, if you're walking, you can be seen as you walk to it. You need to make sure you know the geography of what we're doing today. All right. The sea chest. I lost no time, of course, in telling my mother all that I knew, and perhaps should have told her long before. And we saw ourselves at once in a difficult and dangerous position. Some of the man's money, if he had any, was certainly due to us. Why is there money due to him? Aaron?
Because of all the rum you drank?
Yeah, he drank all around. We lived in their house, and they were too scared to ask for money, right? But it was not likely that our captain's shipmates, above all the two specimens seen by me, Black Dog and the blind beggar, would be inclined to give up their booty in payment of the dead man's debt. They want something from him too. The captain's order to mount at once and ride for Dr. Livesey's would have left my mother alone and unprotected. Remember, yesterday we read, he said, I'll go to that swell doctor if something happens. Well, what happened? Blind Pew came, I better go get the captain. But I've got to go get the Dr. Livesey. But I don't want to leave my mom alone in the house with the dead guy. Indeed, it seemed impossible for either of us to remain much longer in the house. The fall of the coals in the kitchen grate, the very ticking of the clock. You ever been in a house that's so quiet that you can hear the clock? Kind of creepy. Don't forget the dead guy on the floor. And the thought of that detestable, the neighborhood to our ears seemed haunted by approaching footsteps. And what between the dead body of the captain on the parlor floor and the thought of that detestable blind beggar hovering near at hand and ready to return, there were moments when, as the saying goes, I jumped in my skin for terror. Go ahead and get a black book off the back there. Something must speedily be resolved upon, and it occurred to us at last to go forth and seek the help in the neighboring hamlet. No sooner said than done. Bareheaded as we were, we ran out at once in the gathering evening and the frosty fog. It was already candlelight. The hamlet lay not many 100 yards away, though out of view, on the other side of the next cove. And what greatly encouraged me, it was in the opposite direction from whence the blind man had made his appearance, and whither he had presumably returned. So like I said, they're going down to the Pizza Hut. The blind man went in the other direction, okay? We were not many minutes on the road, though we sometimes stopped to lay hold of each other and hearken. That means, I'm scared. Okay, let's get going. But there was no unusual sound. Nothing but the low wash of the ripple and the croaking of the crows in the wood. It was already candlelight when we reached the hamlet, and I shall never forget how much I was cheered to see the yellow shine in doors and windows. Remember, this is England. It's winter. The sun goes down around 4 o'clock, 3:30 in the winter in England. Now it stays up until about 10:30 during the summer. But because they're further north, they're about as north as Canada on latitude. We're way further south, and we still have, we get dark about 5:15 here, right? So, it may only be 4:30-ish, but it's dark outside as they're walking. But as it proved, was the best of the help. But that, as it proved, was the best of the help we were likely to get in that quarter. Foreshadowing, are they going to get much help? No. For you would have thought men would have been ashamed of themselves. No soul would consent to return with us to the Admiral Benbow. The more we told of our troubles, the more man, woman, and child they clung to the shelter of their houses. The name of Captain Flint, though it was strange to me, was well enough known to some there and carried a great weight of terror. If you're somebody who's keeping track of characters, you're probably right. It scares people, thanks to Captain Flint. And other people have heard of him. Some of the men who had been to field work on the far side of the Admiral Benbow remembered, besides, to have seen several strangers on the road and taking them to be smugglers to have bolted away. Oh man, some people saw some guys on the road not too long ago. And one at least had seen a little lugger in what we called Kit's Hole. Kit's Hole, that's up on the opposite side of the Admiral Benbow. There's a little cove, they call it Kit's Hole, and they saw a little boat there called a lugger. For that matter, anyone who was a comrade of the captain's was enough to frighten them to death. And the short of the long of the matter was that while we could get several who were willing enough to ride to Dr. Livesey's, which lay in the other direction, even further away from the Admiral Benbow and Kit's Hole, not one would help us defend the inn. Nobody would go back with us to the hotel. They say cowardice is infectious, but then argument is, on the other hand, a great emboldener. And so, when each had his say, my mother made them a speech. She would not declare, lose money that belonged to her fatherless boy. If none of the rest of you dare, she said, Jim and I dare. Back we'll go where we came. And small thanks to you big, hulking, chicken-hearted men. We'll have that sea chest if we die for it. And thank you for that bag, Mrs. Crossley, but to bring back our lawful money in. It's like, I'll take a bag then if you're not going to help. Of course, I said I would go with my mother. And of course, they all cried out at our foolhardiness. But even then, not a man would go along with us. All they would do was to give me a loaded pistol, lest we were attacked, and to promise to have horses ready saddled in case we were pursued on our return. While one lad was to ride forward to the doctors in search of armed assistance. Here's a gun, and I'll send my kid that way, away from those bad guys. But good luck. My heart was beating finely when we two set forth in the cold night upon this dangerous venture. A full moon was beginning to rise and peered redly through the upper edges of the fog, and this incensed our haste, for it was plain, before we came forth again, that all would be bright as day, and our departure exposed to the eyes of any watchers. We slipped along the hedges, noiseless and swift, nor did we see or hear anything to increase our terrors, till, to our huge relief, the door of the Admiral Benbow, had closed behind us. So, we're back inside. I slipped the bolt at once, click, and we stood and panted for a moment in the dark, alone in the house with the dead captain's body. Then my mother got a candle in the bar, and holding each other's hands, we advanced into the parlor. He lay, as we had left him, on his back, with his eyes open and one arm stretched out. Draw down the blind, Jim, whispered my mother. They might come and watch outside. And now, she said when I had done so, we have to get the key off that. What's that? The captain's body. And taking it up, I found, I could not doubt that this was, I went down on my knees at once. Oh, I'm sorry, I even skipped too much. She said, and who's to touch it, I should like to know. She gave a sob as she said the words, which means I'm not touching it, so you better touch the body. I went down on my knees at once, and on the floor, close to his hand, there was a little round of paper, blackened on the one side. I could not doubt that this was the black spot. And taking it up, I found written on the other side in very good, clear handwriting, this short message. You have till 10 tonight. He had till 10, Mother, said I. And just as I said it, our old clock began striking. Bong, 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 bong. The news was good. It was only 6 o'clock. Now, Jim, that key! I felt in his pockets, one after another, a few small coins, a thimble, and some thread and big needles. A piece of pigtail tobacco bitten away at the end. His goalie with the crooked handle, that's a little knife, a pocket compass, and a tinderbox were all that they contained. I began to despair. Perhaps it's round his neck, suggested my mother. Overcoming a strong repugnance, which is, I tore open his shirt at the neck. And there, sure enough, hanging to a bit of terry string, which I cut with his own goalie, we found the key. At this triumph, we were filled with hope and hurried upstairs without delay to the little room where he had slept so long and where his box had stood since the day of his arrival. They go upstairs to his room. It was like any other seaman's chest on the outside, the initial B burned on the top of it with the hot iron, and the corners somewhat smashed and broken as by long, rough usage. Give me the key, said my mother. And though the lock was very stiff, she had turned it and thrown back the lid in a twinkling. A strong smell of tobacco and tar rose from the interior, but nothing was to be seen on the top except a suit of very good clothes, carefully brushed and folded. They'd never been worn, my mother said. Never wore it. He had nice clothes. Under that, the miscellany began. A quadrant, a tin cannikin, several sticks of tobacco, 2 brace of very handsome pistols, a piece of bar silver, an old Spanish watch, and some other trinkets of little value, and mostly of foreign make. A pair of compasses mounted with brass, and 5 or 6 curious West Indian shells. This guy collected seashells. Isn't that cute? It has often set me thinking since then he should have carried about these shells with him in his wandering guilty and hunted life. In the meantime, we had found nothing of value but the silver and the trinkets, and neither of these were in our way. Underneath there was an old boat cloak, whitened with sea salt on many a harbor bar. My mother pulled it up with impatience, and there lay before us the last things in the chest. A bundle tied up in oilcloth and looking like papers, and a canvas bag that gave forth a touch, ching-ching, a jingle of gold. I'll show these rogues that I'm an honest woman, she said my mother. I'll have my dues and not a farthing over. Hold Mrs. Crossley's bag. And she began to count over the amount of the captain's score from the sailor's bag into the one that I was holding. It was a long, difficult business, for the coins were of all countries and sizes, doubloons and ladors and guineas and pieces of 8, and I know not what besides, all shaken together at random. The guineas, too, were about the scarcest, and it was with these that only my mother knew how to make her count. There's all this big bag of collected coins, not just big gold chips, and all she knows to count are the quarters. There's one. Oh, I found another one. When we were about halfway through, I suddenly put my hand upon her arm. For I had heard in the silent, frosty air a sound that brought my heart to my mouth. The tapping of the blind man's stick upon the frozen road. It drew nearer and nearer. I always sat holding our breath. Then it struck sharp on the door, and when we could hear the handle being turned, the bolt rattling as the wretched being tried to enter. Then there was a long time of silence, both within and without. At last the tapping recommenced, and to our indescribable joy and gratitude died slowly away until it ceased to be heard. Mother, said I, take the whole that's becoming. For I was sure the bolted door must have seemed suspicious and would bring the whole hornet's nest about our ears. Though how thankful I was that I had bolted it. None could tell who had never met that terrible blind man. and my mother, frightened as she was, would not consent to take a fraction more than was my due, and was obstinately unwilling to be content with less. "I'm going to get everything he owes me. I'm not going anywhere." It was not yet 7, she said, by a long way. She knew her rights, and she would have them. She was still arguing with me when a little low whistle sounded a good way off upon the hill. That was enough, and more than enough, for both of us. "I'll take what I have," she said, jumping to her feet. "I'll take this to square the couch." And I picked up that oilskin packet. Next moment, we were both groping downstairs, leaving the candle by the empty chest. And the next thing we had opened the door and were in full retreat. We'd not started a moment too soon. The fog was rapidly dispersing. Already the moon shone quite clear on the high ground on either side, and it was only in the exact bottom of the dell and round the tavern door that a thin veil still hung unbroken to conceal the very first steps of our escape. Far less than half away to the hamlet, very little beyond the bottom of the hill, we must come forth into the moonlight. Nor was this all, for the sound of several footsteps running came clearly to our ears, and as we looked back in their direction, a light, tossing to and fro, still rapidly advancing, showed that one of the newcomers carried a lantern. So they're running down, trying to get to the hamlet. The moon's coming out, the fog is clearing. They're going to see us as soon as we turn the corner. "My dear," said my mother suddenly, "take the money and run on. I'm going to faint." This was certainly the end for both of us, I thought. How I cursed the cowardice of the neighbors. How I blamed my poor mother for her honesty and her greed, for her past foolhardiness and present weakness. We were just at the little bridge by good fortune, and I helped her, tottering as she was, to the edge of the bank, where, sure enough, she gave a sigh and fell on my shoulder. I do not know how I found the strength to do it all, and I'm afraid it was roughly done. "Here, Mom, go, roll down the hill, come on." I always imagine like a Family Guy fall, you know, if you ever watch that show, like somebody falls down, like half broken, and there's like an arm sticking out back here. Like I can see his mom, it's like, "It was roughly done, sorry Mom, you're passed out, but we got to save our lives." But I managed to drag her down the bank and a little way under the arch. Oh, there's a little bridge up there just south of us. Farther I could not move her, for the bridge was too low to let me do more than crawl below it. So there we had to stay, my mother almost entirely exposed, and both of us within earshot of the inn. So here he is. He crawls under the bridge. She's halfway in, halfway out. You can see her if you look for her. But they've got a lantern. Whoever's coming has a lantern in their hand. You know, if it's dark out, you've got a lantern. Your eyes can only really see what's around you. So they might be safe, they might not. And that's the end of chapter 4. Any questions about what happened? Seems to make sense? Catching up with us, being gone? On the same page? Chapter 5, the last of the blind man. Hannah, tell me what this means. My curiosity, in a sense, was stronger than my fear. What does that mean?
You wanted to know who the person was when you were scared of them.
Okay. I wanted to know what's going on more than I was afraid of this person. All right? So what's that mean he's going to do? Is he going to hide under the bridge?
No.
All right, he's going to come up and take a look. For I could not remain where I was, but crept back to the bank again, whence, sheltering my head against a bush of broom, which is flowers, I might command the road before our door. I could see the door from here. I was scarcely in position, and my enemies began to arrive, 7 or 8 of them, running hard, their feet beating out of time along the road, and the man with the lantern some paces in front. 3 men ran together, hand in hand, and I made out, even through the mist, that the middleman of this trio was the blind beggar. The next moment, his voice showed me that I was right. "Down with the door!" he cried. "Aye, aye, sir," answered 2 or 3, and rush was made upon the Admiral Benbow, the lantern-bearer following. And then I could see them pause and hear speeches passed in a lower key, as if they were surprised to find the door open. But the pause was brief, for the blind man again issued his commands. His voice sounded louder and higher, as if he were afire with eagerness and rage. He shouted and cursed them for their delay. 4 or 5 of them obeyed at once, 2 remaining on the road with the formidable beggar. There was a pause, then a cry of surprise, and then a voice shouting from the house, "Bill's dead!" But the blind man swore at them again for their delay. "Search him! Some of you shaking lovers! The rest of you aloft! Get the chest! Go upstairs, look for his chest." I could hear their feet rattling up our old stairs, so that the house must have shook with it. Promptly afterwards, fresh sounds of astonishment arose. The window of the captain's room was thrown open with a slam and a jingle of broken glass, and a man leaned out into the moonlight, head and shoulders, and he addressed the blind beggar on the road below. "Pew," he cried. "They've been before us. Someone's turned their chest out of there in a loft." "Is it there?" roared Pew. "The money's there." The blind man cursed the money. "Fleet fast, I mean," he cried. "We don't see it now," returned the man. "Here, you below here. Is it on Bill?" cried the blind man again. At that, another fellow, probably him who had remained below to search the captain's body, came to the door of the inn. "Bill's been overhauled already," said he. "Nothing left." "It's these people of the inn. It's that boy. I wish I'd put his eyes out," cried the blind man Pew. "They were here no time ago. They had the door bolted when I tried it. Scatter, lads, and find them." "Sure enough, they left their glim here," said the fellow from the window. "What's a glim?" "The candle." Remember, they had the candle upstairs and they'd left it in a hurry. "Scatter and find them. Rout the house out," reiterated Pew, striking with his stick upon the road. Then there followed a great to-do through all our old inn. Heavy feet pounding to and fro, furniture thrown over, doors kicked in, till the very rocks echoed. And the men came out again, one after another on the road, and declared that we were nowhere to be found. Just then, the same whistle that had alarmed my mother and myself over the dead captain's money was once more clearly audible through the night, but this time twice repeated. I had thought it to be the blind man's trumpet, as so to speak, summoning his crew to the assault, but I now found that it was a signal from the hillside towards the hamlet, and from its effect upon the buccaneers, a signal to warn them of approaching danger. Ah! Jim is further away now, and he hears the whistle. He's like, "Well, the whistle's coming from over here. That's the way." Oh, and then all the buccaneers do this. "Oh man!" when they hear the whistle. Not like, "What's that?" It's like, "Oh, so what does it mean?" Danger for the
townspeople.
No. Danger for Pew and his men. Mr. Peterman. Oh, I wonder if I switched them out. Yeah, I have one here that's probably supposed to go there. Okay. Okay. Wait. Okay. So there's somebody who's with the Buccaneers that's up in the trees, warning them that somebody's coming, right? "There's Dak again," said one. "Twice. We'll have to budge, mates." "Budge, you skunk!" cried Pew. "Duck was a fool and a coward from the first. You wouldn't mind him. They must be close by. They can't be far. You have your hands on it. Scatter and look for them dogs, though, shiver my soul. If I had eyes." This appeal seemed to produce some effect, for 2 of the fellows began to look here and there among the lumber, but half-heartedly, I thought, and with half an eye on their own danger all the time, while the rest stood irresolute on the road. "You have your hand on thousands, you fools, and you hang a leg. You'd be as rich as kings if you could find it, and you know it's here, and you'd stand there malingering. There wasn't one of you dead-faced Bill and I did it, a blind man. And I'm to lose my chance for you. I'm to be a buck-running beggar spending for rum when I might be rolling in a coach. If you had the pluck of a weevil and a biscuit, you could catch him still." "Hang it, Pew, we got the doubloons," grumbled one.
They might have heard that blessed thing. Said another, take the George's pew and don't stand here squalling.
Squalling was the word for it, and Pew's anger rose so high at these objections, till at last, his passion completely taking the upper hand, he struck them right and left in his blindness, and his stick sounded heavily on more than one. He started whacking. Come on! Talk to me about what these guys are like. Yeah? These guys around the inn, what are they like? What are you imagining? What's motivating? What are they like? Yeah?
Pew thinks they're like stupid.
Okay, he thinks they're stupid. What do you guys think? Yeah?
They're kind of like his minions, like they do everything for him.
Okay, they just do what he says. Are they really bright guys? No. Okay. These in their turn cursed back at the blind miscreant, threatened him in horrid terms, and tried in vain to catch the stick and wrest it from his grasp. They're starting to fight with each other, right? Right, Griff? So they quarrel with each other, they do what they're told, and they're kind of skittish, right? They're like, oh,
Well, there's like me. I'll just take the stick and put it back.
he's strong and fast, I guess. They're like,
Why don't you run away as long as you can see me?
It's a good thought. This quarrel was the saving of us, for while it was still raging, another sound came from the top of the hill on the side of the hamlet, the tramp of the horses galloping. Almost at the same time, a pistol shot, flash and report, came from the hedge side, and that was plainly the last signal of danger. For the buccaneers turned at once and ran, separating in every direction, one seaward along the cove, one slants across the hill, and so on, and so that in half a minute not a single of them remained. But Pew, him they had deserted. Whether in sheer panic or out of revenge for his ill words and blows, I know not. But there he remained behind, tapping up and down the road in a frenzy, and groping and calling for his comrades. Finally, he took the wrong turn, and ran a few steps past me, towards the hamlet, crying, "Johnny! Black Dog! Jack! You won't leave old Pew, mates, not old Pew!" Just then the noise of horses topped the rise, and 4 or 5 riders came in sight in the moonlight, and swept at full gallop down the slope. At this, Pew saw his error, turned with a scream, and ran straight for the ditch, in which he rolled. But he was on his feet in a second again, and made another dash, now utterly bewildered, right under the nearest of the coming horses. The rider tried to save him, but in vain. Down went Pew with a cry, "Ah!" that rang into the night. And the 4 hoofs trampled and spurned him and passed by. He fell on his side, then gently collapsed upon his face, and moved no more. I leaped to my feet and hailed the riders. They were pulling up at any rate, horrified at the accident, and I soon saw what they were. One tailing out behind the rest was a lad that had gone from the hamlet to Dr. Livesey's. One of the kids from the town had run off to go find Dr. Livesey. The rest were revenue officers, or cops, military police, whom he had met by the way, and with whom he had the intelligence to return at once. "Hey, come here, you guys are like cops, come on." Some news of the lugger in Kit's Hole had found its way to Supervisor or Sheriff Dance, and sent him forth that night in our direction. And to that circumstance my mother and I owed our preservation from death. The kid had found some cops. They had heard about the ship up in the cove just to the north of there. Let's go get it. Let's go find him. Pew was dead, stone dead. As for my mother, when we carried her up to the hamlet, a little cold water and salts, and that soon brought her back again. And she was none the worse for her terror, though she still continued to deplore the balance of the money. "We still need our money." In the meantime, the supervisor rode on, sheriff rode on, as fast as he could to Kit's Hole. But his men had to dismount, grope down the dingle or the valley, leading and sometimes supporting their horses, try to drag the horses down, and in continual fear of ambushes. You know, it's the middle of the night, there's a bunch of guys with guns, and they're trying to go through the forest, trying to get down to this little thing called Kit's Hole. So it was no great matter for surprise that when they got down to the hole, the lugger was already underway, though still close in. He hailed her, like, "Stop!" A voice replied, telling him to keep out of the moonlight, or he would get some lead in him. and at the same time a bullet whistled close by his arm. Soon after, the lugger doubled the point and disappeared. Mr. Dance stood there, as he said, like a fish out of water, and all he could do was to dispatch a man to, Bristol, to warn the cutter. And that, said he, is just about as good as nothing. They've got off clean, and there's an end. Only, he added, I'm glad I trod on Master Pugh's corns, for by this time he had heard my story. I went back with him to the Admiral Benbow, and you cannot imagine a house in such a state of smash. The very clock had been thrown down by these fellows in their furious hunt after my mother and myself, and though nothing had actually been taken away except the captain's money bag and a little silver from the till, I could see at once we were ruined, bankrupt. Mr. Dance could make nothing of the scene. They got the money, you say? Well then, Miss Hawkins, what infortune were they after? More money, I suppose. No, sir, not money, I think, replied I. In fact, sir, I believe I have the thing in my breast pocket. And to tell you the truth, I should like to put it in safety. To be sure, boy, quite right, he said. I'll take it if you like. But I thought perhaps Dr. Livesey, I began. Perfectly right, he interrupted, very cheerily. Perfectly right, a gentleman and a magistrate. And now I come to think of it, I might as well ride round there myself and report to him, or squire. Squire? Have we heard that before? Where?
First sentence.
The first sentence. First sentence of the book. Master Pugh's dead when all's done. Not that I regret, but he's dead, you see, and people will make it out against an officer of His Majesty's revenue, and make it out if they can. Now they'll blame us for doing something wrong, so I probably better go report it to the judge anyway. Now I'll tell you, Hawkins, if you like, I'll take you along. I thanked him heartily for the offer, and we walked back to the hamlet where the horses were. By the time I had told mother of my purpose, they were all in the saddle. Dogger, said Mr. Dance, you have a good horse. Take up this lad behind you. Dogger's just another one of the cops. As soon as I was mounted, holding on to Dogger's belt, the supervisor gave the word, and the party struck out at a bouncing trot on the road to Dr. Livesey's house. All right. So, he's got something in his pocket. What did Pugh call it?
Like Flint's hand.
Kind of like Flint's hand. What is it, though?
What?
His fist.
Yeah, Flint's fist. I believe I have it in my breast pocket. What did he got something?
Why is it a hand?
Why does he have a hand in his pocket?
What? Are you gonna do
What did he grab?
Well,
out of the-
satchel bag.
So oil.
Remember, Sarah?
The oil thing.
Yeah, the oil thing pouch.
Sarah? What did he grab?
You look
Some
at
sort of
me.
pouch. Some sort of pouch. Okay. And he's like, I want to look at it, but I think I should get it to somebody. And Sheriff Dance is like, oh, I'll take it. He's like, hey, Dr. Livesey should be the right person.
No.
So, that's where we're heading. Blind Pugh, what happened to him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got trampled.
He did.
So,
He ran over.
all right.
He done got
Bye.
He gone.